Hey, my name's Jon Tran, and I have the joy and privilege of pastoring Grasslands Church that we planted 2 years ago. And I also have the joy and privilege of being part of the community here at Renegade. And for our G4C family, I just wanted to share a few thoughts this Easter on the theme of submission. Because submission is something that we in the BJJ community know a thing or two about. And I know a thing or two about submissions because I get submitted a lot. The way it usually goes is we start on our knees because I don't like standing up. I feel afraid of what's going to happen. And so we high five, fist bump. And what usually happens is that in a matter of minutes, I get overwhelmed by an opponent that is smarter, stronger, faster, younger, and probably better looking than me. And what happens? There comes a point where I need to assess my life choices and decide, is this time for me to tap? And usually, yes it is, because something's about to get broken or I'm about to pass out. Here's the thing, right? In our lives, both on the mat and off the mat, we are doing everything that we can to not tap, to stay in the fight. And we hope that things will go our way, that if we exert some of our strength or our skill in a particular way, we can maintain control, we can get good position and even get on top and get a tap. No one wants to get submitted. Everyone is fighting for position. That's the story of humanity. That's your story, that's mine. We do everything that we can to exert our dominance and get what we want. But Easter tells a different story. Easter is the story of a God who does have all the power, who does have all the technique and the skill and the ability, and yet chooses a different path. In the New Testament, we're told about one of Jesus' disciples, his friends, named Peter. He was Jesus' right-hand man. And a few years after Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, Peter's writing a letter. And in chapter 3, verse 17, Peter says that it is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good rather than doing evil. Peter gives us a principle, yeah? It's better for you and I to suffer for doing good rather than doing evil. And no one's going to argue with that. No half-decent moral person is arguing that we should pay the price to do good rather than doing evil. The only problem with that is that our entire society tells you that you need to chase comfort and pleasure and success and fame, even if you've got to cut some corners along the way. Peter goes on in verse 18 in chapter 3. He says, the way that you can suffer and do good is to look at Christ. Verse 18, he says, for Christ suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but then made alive in the spirit. Jesus Christ was a man who lived in Nazareth around Galilee in the first century in Israel, but that's not only who he is, right? As Christians, we believe that he is the Son of God, fully human and fully God. And we believe that God in Jesus, just like Peter said, voluntarily, freely chose to become like one of us, to allow himself to be overcome, overwhelmed, totally taken over by sin and suffering and darkness and evil at the cross. This is the story of Easter. And Peter says that what Jesus did was like an exchange. He says Jesus went to the cross, the righteous for the unrighteous. His perfect life given in exchange for our imperfection. His spotless record for your rap sheet. His riches for my poverty. And you know what? He chose not to resist. He chose not to fight back. He chose the path of non-violence. Instead, he allowed himself to be whipped and abused and spat on and insulted and then eventually nailed to a cross, naked for everyone to see. At any moment, he could have called down an army of angels to wage war, but he didn't. Why did he do it? Peter says that he did it so that we could be brought to God. So that you and I, those who use and abuse our power to dominate others, you and I who use our smarts and schemes to get advantage in the workplace. You and I who can't get a win no matter how hard we try. Jesus went to the cross so that you and I could be brought near to God. He died at the cross in our place for our sake. It was an exchange. And now, because he did that, we can come to God. No matter how tattered and messed up your life is, no matter how dodgy your record is, no matter how weak you actually are, instead of having the life and the breath choked out of us, we can come to God and he gives us life. That's the story of Easter. But Peter goes on in verses 20 to 21, and he says that since Jesus was raised from the grave, you and I are saved. In other words, the resurrection of Jesus is proof that what he set out to do, he actually achieved. And because he did, because he defeated death, because he was raised victorious over evil, because he took sin and death's best shot and triumphed over it, Peter says that now every angel, every demon, every human, every institution, every principality and power is now in submission to Jesus. And Paul says that whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not, everything is now and will be in submission to the one who suffered and gave his life so that we could be brought near to God. Everything is now under the authority of Jesus. I don't know where you are this Easter. I don't know your story. I wish I did. But if you'll indulge me, I want to leave you with a challenge. In our world and in our society, Easter is about a stupid rabbit, overeating on chocolates and having a few days off on the long weekend. But what if this Easter was about Jesus? What if this Easter, maybe for the first time or maybe for the 1,000th time, you come to him and you submit yourself freely to the one who submitted himself for your sake? What if you came to Jesus this Easter, the one who chose to have life choked out of him at the cross for your sake and has now won the victory over death? What if you come to him and say to him, I submit myself to you. You be the King and the Lord of my life. God bless you, team.